Ghost grunted softly as he threw his body to the side again. Despite his size, the thing was certainly very fast. The tyrant didn't seem to want to give the ancient time to fight back. As soon as Ghost stood up and tried to move away, the monster spun its body around in an attempt to side punch the man. The ancient threw his torso back, dodging the punch but feeling the air that hit him from the blow. If he was caught by the direct attack, he would certainly be screwed. The tyrant again attacked him with his claws, a diagonal attack. However, the ancient body dodged it by throwing his body back, and his eyes briefly analyzed the destruction that the claws were used against the wall, that the small cave they were in. Luckily, Ghost raises his Desert Eagle and shoots the creature's heart, a perfect direct shot, causing the tyrant to stagger back a few steps. The ancient fired, and despite hitting the tyrant's weakness, the creature seemed to simply ignore the pain and lift a swift kick to the man's torso, causing Ghost to be thrown backwards hard. The ancient grunted loudly from the pain. If it weren't for the ballistic vest that had proven some sort of protection, he would certainly be supporting a few broken ribs at the moment. "Okay, pal, this date was good while it lasted, but I think you're going to end up heartbroken," Ghost muttered as he stood up. He grabbed a mixture of herbs from a ballistic vest and stood up, just in time to dodge another attack incoming from the creature. The cave wasn't very small, and the monster was big and fast. The easiest way to defeat the thing was to take a distance. Ghost raised his pistol and fired more into the heart of the creature than he moved away. He shot briefly and stunned Tyrant, and Ghost used this opportunity to move further away and reload his gun. The monster, however, seemed to not understand the age of what he was thinking. With one swift movement, the tyrant ripped off a large chunk of the wall in each of its arms and hurled pieces toward the ancient. Ghost gritted his teeth slightly and jumped to the side, dodging the first piece of stone. Still in the air, it takes momentum off the wall and leaps even higher, dodging the attack once more, firing more shots at the creature before landing on the ground with another body swing. The creature roared again and ran towards the agent with his arm in front of its body. He threw the grenade onto the ground and ran backwards, hearing the tyrant's heavy footsteps just behind him. The grenade exploded around the ground shook. The tyrant stopped running due to the impact, but did not suffer too much damage. Ghost turned and fired again at the creature, which took a few steps forward before starting to run again. As soon as the monster got close enough, the tyrant attempted to punch at the ancient with its huge arm. The man, however, dodged it by throwing himself between the creature's legs, and his eyes scanned the destroyed wall. Ahead, just below, was a sewage area. He could see a ladder leading up to the iron door. His attention was drawn again, and the creature turned around before he had tried to attack him with its claws. Due to the tyrant's size, especially its limbs, and the range of his attacks were medium to long, meaning the agent took 2 steps forward before ducking and dodging the blow. Since close up, the creature had trouble attacking his prey. Before the creature could even move again, he raised his pistol and fired at the exposed heart. The tyrant roared loudly, and with his hand, gripped the agent tightly. Ghost grunted from the grip as he was lifted into the air, but he reacted quickly. With his Desert Eagle, fired at the creature's head and heart, causing the tyrant to release him slightly stunned. As it fell to the ground, Ghost took another grenade, and with his knife, sliced open the tyrant's heart and shoved the grenade inside. The monster reacted again, raised both its arms in an attempt to crush the agent. Ghost was faster, however, and threw himself between the creature's legs. He jumped into the sewage area below, landing on the concrete next to dirty water. The grenade exploded, and the ancient turned to see his weapon raised. The tyrant knelt down on the ground disoriented. The creature lost its balance and ended up falling backwards. Its torso hit the concrete, and its legs fell into the water. Ghost took a deep breath as he approached. Part of the tyrant's chest was destroyed. The heart, although still beating, was stained with blood and practically deformed. No matter how tough this creature was, an explosion from the inside out was enough to kill any kind of monster in existence. But still was mildly surprised to see the creature still alive after an inside-out explosion. Certainly extremely resilient creature, the tyrant raised his hand and grunted towards the agent. Although weak, the creature tried to get up. Ghost raised his gun and discharged the entire clip into the monster's heart. At the distance, there was nothing to do. The tyrant gave its last grunt before falling to the ground, its body motionless, and its heart had stopped beating. The ancient took a few deep breaths, grunting briefly for the pain in his body. Although he had been hit by a few blows, he was still not fully healed from his past mission. For some reason, his body was taking a little while to recover. Even with the use of herbs and natural regeneration being faster than ordinary human, he still felt some pain, still felt some kind of tiredness. According to Walter, the fatigue was building up. All he needed to do was get a good natural rest and his body would return to normal. Of course, as if William was going to agree with that. HQ to Ghost, you are in danger zone. Get out of here, his radio squeaked. Ghost looked on the device on his shoulder for a few moments, but before he could even do anything, he heard the extremely loud explosion-like noise just above him. The man was thrown off balance. The floor shook violently. After a few moments, the ceiling looked as if it would collapse. And that's exactly what happened. Debris began to fall from the small cave that he had been a few moments ago. The ceiling shook. Pieces of stone and concrete began to fall. Ghost stood up quickly and ran to the iron door, opening it, just before the ceiling collapsed completely. The man sighed heavily after closing the door behind him. His eyes traveled up the staircase and rose a few feet that led to an open area just above. HQ to Ghost. What the hell was that? He said, looking at the wreckage that could be seen from down there. The situation at the airport has taken a turn from the worst. The plane has crashed into the terminal. Ghost, a bioterrorist attack. The authorities were triggered some time ago. They will surround the airport and take action. Go to Frederick, his assistant said, and Ghost started up the steps. Looks like I'll have to take a detour. The tunnel I was just in collapsed, he said, running his eyes through as soon as he climbed the stairs. Part of the wrecked plane was right in front of him now. The fire was spreading through the wreckage and the whole place was shrouded in a cloud of smoke. Well then, to get out of there as soon as possible. The authorities will surround this place soon, the assistant said. With a slight nod to himself, the ancient raised his rifle and began walking through the destroyed site. Among the wreckage, he could make some of the fallen bodies, deformed from the crash and killed by something else before the plane. He recognized them, grayish skin, blood on their hands and mouths. A roar caught his attention, however. A few meters from him, he saw a creature walk out of the wrecked plane. His eyes stared at the humanoid licker-like beings, walking curtly across the scene. How surprising, he muttered to himself. He had never seen lickers walk on two legs. They were more corpulent than quite tall. Not to mention that their heads held the claws that surprisingly those of an ordinary licker. But despite these striking differences, they seemed to be otherwise blind in some way. In other words, they hadn't seen them yet. The ancient took his first sip to continue on his way. However, the grunt that the liquor gave, along with the sudden movement, made him look back again. Something even he didn't quite understand why. They probably heard some piece of concrete fell to the ground, or some grunt from a survivor. He didn't go there to stop the attack. The authorities were well on their way for that. He went there to eliminate the target and destroy the laboratory only. However, his eyes focused on a small brown-haired girl, standing right in sheer terror and a few hundred paces away, next to a large metal plate. Most likely a plane wreckage. She had her arms wrapped around her body and was walking backwards in small steps. What she didn't realize is that she walked directly towards a body lying on the ground as she saw the blood staining on the sole of her foot. What had touched her heel started to escape from her throat, drawing the attention of all the lickers there. Lickers ran fast as they could on four legs. The decision had to be quick. He had orders to follow, but at the same time he wasn't cold enough to simply turn his back on the unprotected child. His tongue licked and raised his rifle. He had pulled the trigger and began to move quickly towards the lickers, 4 in total. He alternated his shots between the last two. He had heard the firing coming from behind the metal place. One survivor. He closed his eyes and he picked up the concussion grenade and threw it towards the lickers closest to the girl. "Close your eyes," he shouted, just before the grenade exploded. He couldn't tell if the girl closed her eyes or not, but just concentrated on shooting the stunned lickers. The lickers closest to him had turned the direction and started running towards him, the ancient moving closer as he held the trigger, hitting the shots between his chest, neck, and head. Apparently they were as long and tough as regular lickers, too. The first licker approached and attempted a diagonal attack with its claws. The ancient ducked by dodging this to the side, firing at the second licker. As the clip emptied, the second licker threw itself towards the ancient in an attempt to pierce him with its claws. However, Ghost threw himself forward and rolled on the ground. Before he can even get up, he pulled his Desert Eagle from his holster and raised it again. The first licker attacked him again. However, Ghost threw him back his torso and shot the creature in the head, which staggered a few steps but didn't fall. The licker tried to counterattack a horizontal slash. However, the ancient was faster and dodged again, and he crouched. He finally shot again at the licker's head, exploding the exposed brain. The second licker attacked again viciously. The creature attempted a vertical attack. However, the ancient deflected and shot the monster in the leg, which was knelt on its stricken leg, and finally finished off with a headshot. Ghost quickly turned around and quickly approached the situation ahead. The blonde woman stood with a pistol raised, firing at one of the two lickers that she was facing. The closest one attacked her with a piercing attack. However, she threw her torso back and counterattacked by striking the knife at the base of the creature's neck. She then forced the licker down on its back in support to shoot the creature that was now running towards her. The woman kicked the licker forward and began to move backward until her back hit the wall. By her clothes, a member of Terra's Save, unlike the others she had seen, she had training that was clear. Not anyone would go against two lickers at the same time. Realizing that she had ran out of ammunition, she grumbled loudly. One of the lickers attacked her for trying to get its claws into the girl, who dodged, but her pistols were destroyed in the process. As trained as she was, however, she could not go against the two without a simple pistol with no bullets. Before the lickers could get to her, he fired at the both of them while still moving. His bullets hit the heads of the creatures, and they soon fell to the ground. He sighed briefly, stopped moving. His eyes went to the frightened man who was staring at the whole thing with wide eyes. Ghost stared at him for a few moments. He recognized the man, Senator Ron Davis, one of his possible targets. It was confirmed that he was indeed involved with those allegations, and even though he'd become a target, his eyes then went to the little girl he had spotted. She had looked frightened, but was approaching slowly. Her dark eyes stared at the bodies of the lickers on the ground, apparently not even caring about his presence. "Hey Selena, are you okay?" the blonde woman asked, approaching the girl who only looked away from the bodies. Ghost followed the woman for a few moments. There was something about her that made him uneasy. She looked strangely familiar and had a strange feel run through her chest. It was that the woman had turned towards him, and her blue eyes then stared into his. This was when the strange feeling in his chest tightened. His heart began to beat faster and his eyes widened. If it hadn't been for the mask, she would have seen this incredulous expression. How could he not recognize her? The blonde hair was a little longer, expressions were more mature, her body was more grown up. But those eyes, those features, were unmistakable. "Fucking hell," he whispered, watching Sherry stand up to a little suspicious, confused but grateful. Memories began to invade his mind, memories that he first avoided thinking about. But as time went on, he simply didn't want to see them anymore. At one point during those years, he simply accepted that he would not see them again, and decided that he should move on and embrace this reality. He didn't see them as they lived their lives the way they deserved. It was one of the reasons he didn't seem to see them on William's monitoring cameras. He looked away and he lowered his head, reached for a full clip to reload his Desert Eagle. He didn't want to look at her. No, he couldn't. Thanks for the help." Sherry's matured voice echoed loudly through his ears as she remembered she thanked him for saving her. Of course she was lucky to have them. He didn't have to answer. just looked around as if something for some creature. Sherry, in turn, knew him, or rather heard about him. Black military clothing with a skull on his head. Highly skilled, proven to the fact that he killed those lickers. The same man who helped Chris and Jill. The same person who had many doubts about. Maybe she could take some information. Can you... The girl exclaimed, practically, screaming and drawing attention to three adults, hugging her own body, and looked at him with wide eyes. "Is il Phantasma?" she shouted again. At first Ghost was briefly confused, but after a few thoughtful seconds, a snap echoed through his mind. Il Phantasma. Of course he would remember when he got this nickname. He couldn't remember the girl exactly, but it was safe to assume that she was amongst the victims who were kidnapped by that group associated with Veltro years ago. Sherry stared at the girl for a few moments, a little confused by her sudden scream, but soon turned to be the agent, and everything connected. He was there. He was responsible for the freedom of the kidnapped victims. In other words, he was responsible for the elimination of the group. Considering all the little information he knew, it was no wonder why he had no one had found out about that moment, what really happened. Before she could say anything, however, warped door and wrecked plane was suddenly destroyed. From the same spot where the agent left, several lickers appeared, and in a matter of moments the terminal was once again filled with biological weapons. "We can't stay here," he said, his deep voice catching Sherry's attention. He approached the girl and from his holster took out his silver pistol, handing it to her. The girl looked at the gun for a few moments. Her eyes running down the silver barrel seemed to glow, and the writing on the side. "Silver Ghost," she muttered to herself as she picked the gun up, just before looking at him again. He reloaded his rifle and turned around, nodding to Sherry before starting to move towards the corridor ahead.